Hi there, this is Jen, and thanks so much for joining me today. Today I am making 20 cards using some Michael's Hot Buy paper pads. So last year I did a series called Christmas Cards on a Budget, and so people seem to like that, and so I'm going to go ahead and start doing that every year. And so this year I'm once again using the Michael's Hot Buy paper pads. I am making 20 cards using 2 different paper pads. And so this video is going to move very quickly, but these are all super simple cards. And if you've bought the Hot Buy paper pads, you know that you get a ton of paper. And so what I do is I take half of the paper pad out, I cut it right in half because these are 12 by 12. So I cut the papers in half, so it is basically a 6 by 12 or 2 pieces of 6 by 12. And this paper pad that I'm going to use first is called Save Freeze. It is perfect for cards. It has sentiments, it has focal points, which are the die cut pieces. So I use nothing, I don't think, really extra in these other than a little bit of embellishments because this has everything that I need. And I'm also had a whole sheet of tags, which I'm going to be using for my Christmas presents. These are some of the leftover images from this that I'm going to end up using some of them along with this second paper pad. So for this first card, this is a really simple, easy card. I have just cut one of the images from the paper, and I'm adding a little bit of colored pencil. Colored pencils are a great way to add a little more detail and depth and dimension to your a pattern paper. And these images are super easy to color because they've already got the areas where there's shadows. So I just go over that with a coordinating colored pencil, which makes the pattern paper or the images look a little less flat. I did use a sentiment from my stash and stamp that in black ink. For this next card, I am using some twine and a piece of pattern paper and one of the tags that says Merry Christmas. And so I am just creating kind of like a present. And then I created a bow as well. And on every card that I use twine or anything that raises the card up, I also use that really thin foam I've been using a lot lately. It comes in a big pack at Walmart, and it's great for just a little bit of extra dimension, but not too much. And so that card, I added a few enamel dots, and that is it for that card. So for this next card, it came with kind of this ugly sweater, and so I took that as well as the bow, and I just added the bow to the sweater. Added that, popped that up onto this circle pattern paper, and then added the sentiment that says Holly Jolly. And I just cut these out from that 12 by 12 piece that has all the really pretty sentiments on it, and that finishes off that card. I don't add any extra embellishments, but I do also use the colored pencil, I believe, on the bow on this card. And I did want to mention that there is going to be a link in the description below that will have still shots of all of the cards, so that if you wanted to print it out and use it for the layout or just for ideas, since I do go through this kind of quickly, I thought it would be a good idea to just include that so you have kind of a reference if you are looking for some ideas. For this card, the pattern paper, a strip of the paper, I popped up the sentiment and added a few white Nuvo drops, and that is it for that card. For this next card, this is one of the cut aparts, and I did also use a colored pencil on this as well. I had to trim off that little strip of kind of foiled paper because it was too big for my 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 card base, and I did use 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 card bases for all of these cards. And then I'm going to go ahead and use a little bit of Stickles, and I believe this is Stardust Stickles. It's really hard to see in this, but there's a little bit on all of the snow areas. And that is going to finish off that card. I really like this card. One of the pieces of pattern paper has a snow globe, and so I'm going to go ahead and use that. I do use the colored pencils on this image as well. And then I'm going to pop up that sentiment, and I'm adding a little bit of snow. It's probably not going to, probably not going to be able to see it, but I'm adding a little bit of snow with a white Posca paint pen. And that will complete that card. I really love this pattern paper in this paper pad. And again, this is called Save Freeze. And I love it because when I'm looking to make cards, especially lots of cards with pattern paper, and usually the only time I do it is around Christmas time, what I look for in the pattern paper is that, of course, I like the style or the design or the colors. I'm always looking for something that has a focal point. This paper pad is perfect. It has that whole 12 by 12 sheet of images, and then on a lot of the other 12 by 12 pieces in the pack, it has the images that you can just fussy cut out. And it also has a lot of sentiments. So it has that whole sheet of really pretty sentiments. And then there's some sentiments on tags and sentiments other places in the paper pad. And you can't beat the value for the hot buy paper pads. When I bought these, I think it was buy one for $19.99 and get two free. So it was about $7 for a paper pad. But what I usually do is when I'm making the cards is I'll take half the paper pad out, and then I'll give the other half of the paper away because I'm not going to use it. I have a ton of paper left over. You can make over 100 cards just with one paper pad. It's very doable. And one of the main reasons that I just love using the paper pads, especially Michaels, because they seem to have some really great designs every year, is that these are just basically cutting paper and doing layouts. There's no fancy techniques. There's no really no supplies that you need. I do use some circle dies in some of these cards, but other than that, really everything is from my stash. So you can just pull embellishments or whatever you have to add a little bit of extra to your cards. And it can be even more cost effective if you split the cost of the paper, if you're not going to use it all, with your crafty friend and give them half and you use half, and you still have plenty of paper to make lots and lots of cards, and then you're not paying as much. So even better. This little cup that I cut out has some marshmallows in it, and I'm using something from Creative Expressions. It's called Fluffy Stuff. And so basically you put it on whatever you're putting it on, and then use your heat gun on it, and it will make it puffy. And so it makes it a little bit dimensional, and I don't use it that often, but I saw those marshmallows and I just knew I had to use that stuff. It is actually pretty cool. So this is the second paper pad, and this one is called Red and White Christmas. I love red and white for Christmas. I just love those colors together for Christmas. But this pad didn't have as much as far as images for me to use. And so I do use some of the images, but I pulled some of the leftover images that I had from the first paper pad. And it has some pretty sentiments. It has that whole 12 by 12 sheet of kind of like small little sentiments, which I cut that paper pad in strips so that I could use them, but I didn't use a whole lot. What I did do was I had printed out a bunch of sentiments from my computer, and I have a laser printer, so I printed those out with my laser printer and was able to foil some of those. I am going to go ahead and include a link in the description for those sheets, so that if you wanted to use those on your cards, you could. I will probably end up using them if I make more Christmas cards, but those are the 3 sheets, and so I will have a link below, and you can just print those out, and if you have a laser printer, you can foil them, but if not, they're still great sentiments to use. So it's pretty much going to be the same for this set of cards. There are 10 cards that I create with this. And so I'm just pulling the pattern paper. I do use one of the sentiments from one of those sheets, the one that says wishing you a, and then it says holly jolly, Merry Christmas. And those small little sentiment strips are from that 12 by 12 sheet in in this paper pad. And so for this card, I'm going to go ahead and use a little bit of Distress Oxide ink in Festive Berries, just to add a little more color to this card. I am making a Christmas tree, basically. So I'm taking some of those sentiment strips from the 12 by 12 paper and just going from smallest to largest as you get to the bottom. But first I went ahead and used my Gansai Tombi, however you say that, watercolors, and these are the Starry Nice watercolors, which has like the golds and the white golds, just lots of different shades of golds. And I did adhere all the little sentiment strips with some liquid glue, and then I popped that panel up on my card base with a little bit of that thin foam, and that will finish off that card. And I wanted to mention real quick, I did check the ad for this when this video will be posted, and this video is posting on November 10th. And this week Michaels does still have the buy one at $19.99 and get two free. And so when I purchased mine, the three that I picked were the ones that I'm using in this video. So I chose Save Freeze, and then the other one's called Red and White Christmas. I also managed to pick up one of their 12 by 12 glitter stacks, and I think it was the last one when I was at my Michaels, and so I think those go kind of quickly, but I try and pick one up every year just because it's a super good price. But if you're interested, go ahead and check out your Michaels online or in store. I don't think you can beat the amount of cards you can make for the price. For this card, I took the banner. There's a 12 by 12 sheet that has some of these banner flags, and I just made a little design on the card to use as the focal point, and then cut out that joy word and decoration from excuse me, another cut apart. And then I took some twine from my stash along with a little star button, pop that up with some foam again, some of the thin foam, and that completes that card. For the next card, this is probably my favorite from this bunch. I took the striped paper pad, and what I did was I cut it in half and then changed the directions so that it looked like this. Instead of having the stripes all going in the same direction. I did use a small strip of the glitter paper in the middle for the transition between the two papers. And then this joy word and the other small little sentiments are also in the paper pack. I added some enamel dots from my stash, and that will complete that card. So while I'm putting together a few of these cards, I wanted to ask a question, and that is, do you have any Christmas traditions that you do every year? And if you do, what are they? I'm always looking for ideas for fun ways, or fun ways to make memories, or just some new things that I can do with my boys who are 8 and 11. A few years ago, we started collecting Christmas ornaments, and so every year we go to Michael's usually because they have a ton of ornaments. We go there, and each of them picks out an ornament that they like, and they hang it on the tree. And then I write the year and their name with the Sharpie somewhere on the ornament that you can't really see it. And so my plan was to, when they get old enough to have their own Christmas tree, to box those all up, and they can use those on their tree. And I got this idea, I don't remember where, I think I probably read it or heard it somewhere, and I thought it was really great because it is a great way to create memories and then have those carry on throughout the years, throughout the family. And it's really not very expensive. So if you have any traditions that you do every year, I would absolutely love to hear about them. Like I said, I'm always looking for new ways to create memories. So this card that I just finished, I used a piece of the, I want to call it a die cut, but it's a, one of the images from the first paper pack. And this one right here is just a super easy one. Again, I just matted it on a piece of red cardstock, added the sentiment and a few Stardust Stickles, and that is it. So for this card, I cut a piece of pattern paper and a piece of glitter paper at an angle. And I'm going to be using one of the sentiments from the sheets that I created. And again, there will be a link below if you would like to use these sentiment sheets. They are free. And so since I printed with a laser printer, I was able to foil that Merry Christmas with some red foil. I added a few sequins, and then in the middle of those sequins I added some white Nuvo drops, and that completes that card. And then this last card is another really easy card. I did use the circle die from my stash to create that circle. I don't know why, because it now that I'm looking at myself putting it together, it didn't, there was no reason for me to cut a circle, but okay. And so this is the last card. I finished it off by adding a few heart enamel hearts, and that is it. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it's a little bit longer than normal, but hopefully it went quickly. And again, don't forget that I will have links to both the cards on a document as well as those free sentiment sheets that you can use for your Christmas cards. And those will be in the description below. As always, if you liked this video or found it informative, please go ahead and give me a thumbs up. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to spend with me. I hope you have fun holiday card making, and I hope to see you next time.